When Necrozma shattered, it was left in debilitating pain. But those living in other worlds, the Pokemon now known as Ultra Beasts, they faced an even worse fate. But how did I even come to that conclusion in the first place? Alola's trial bosses, empowered by a mysterious Z-aura. This same aura also surrounds Ultra Beasts. Unlike our totem Pokemon though, Ultra Beasts didn't just grow in size. Their worlds were hit by so much more of Necrozma's light that it caused their bodies to change irreversibly, adapting themselves for better, or for worse, to their now alien ecosystem. But how did Necrozma's light even get to these other dimensions? And why would it mutate Pokemon that we know oh so well into giant monstrosities? Well, according to the records coming from the Ultra Recon Squad, their ancestors were driven by greed, so much so that they desperately attempted to steal Ultra Necrozma's light. Their reckless actions caused Necrozma to shatter into thousands of fragments. These fragments, theorized by both Lily and Professor Kukui, are believed to be the Z crystals and sparkling stones that rained down onto our Alola region. But here is where things get strange. Ultra Necrozma's body didn't break apart in Alola. It happened in the dimension now known as the Ultra Megalopolis. So how did these crystals end up in our world in the first place? Well, Necrozma is one of the few Pokemon capable of opening Ultra wormholes, besides Solgaleo and Lunala of course. So what's if, in its broken state, Necrozma unintentionally opened multiple wormholes across dimensions, scattering its Z-crystals, the broken shards from its body, through them? But it wasn't just the crystals that burst out of Necrozma. The very thing the Ultra Recon Squad's ancestors sought out, its light energy, also poured out alongside them. This light must have also traveled through the same wormholes, spreading Necrozma's energy across the many worlds. And here's why I believe that's exactly what happened. In the games, the Ultra Recon Squad confirms that the Z-power surrounding totem Pokemon is the very same light that once filled Necrozma. This idea is further backed up by Necrozma's ability to temporarily return to its original Ultra form. But what exactly is this light energy that comes from Necrozma? It's actually a lesser known form of something much more fundamental, infinity energy, the life force that powers all living beings in the Pokemon world. We can see this connection clearly in Ultra Necrozma's signature Z move, the light that burns the sky. In order to unleash this attack, it draws energy directly from its trainer, showing that this light is rooted in the same energy that binds trainer and Pokemon together. This connection is no coincidence. Z moves, just like Mega Evolution, require a strong bond between Pokemon and trainer. And added onto that whole fact, Mega Evolution also releases large amounts of infinity energy. Necrozma's Pokédex entry adds even more weight to this theory. It reads this: the light pouring from its body affects living things and nature, impacting them in various ways. Infinity energy is also known to alter life itself, extending lifespans and increasing size. I mean, just look at AZ, who used a large amount of life energy harvested from Pokemon 3,000 years ago. But how do I know that our worlds must have once looked the same? Well, in Ultra Space you can find something known as the Ultra Wilds, which are dimensions you can access through an assortment of differently colored wormholes. What's interesting about this is that there are multiple different versions, or in a sense, copies of these worlds. Even ours functions on a very similar level. If you're playing Pokemon Moon, you can travel to Pokemon Sun, and if you're playing Pokemon Sun, you can travel to Pokemon Moon. These worlds each contain Pokemon that are exactly the same as ours, even being able to be caught by normal Pokeballs. And the Ultra Beasts? Well, they are too able to be captured by us, even if it is slightly more difficult than normal. Now then, I'll be going through every single one of their worlds, and for each of the Ultra Beasts living there, I'm going to argue what Pokemon they originally mutated from, why they look the way they do now, and at the same time, I'll also give you the information behind each of their world's ecosystems. The Ultra Beast known as Buzzwole is also commonly referred to as the swollen Pokemon, and rightfully so, with witnesses reporting it to be able to pulverize a dump truck with a single punch. It also allows us to listen to its workout playlist while we're here, which I always appreciate. Buzzwole's home dimension is the Ultra Jungle, a vast humid rainforest teeming with twisting trees that eerily resemble muscular figures flexing their torsos and arms. The unstable environment is constantly reshaped by volcanic activity and rivers that snake through the jungle. In the back of the accessible area lies an active volcano that can erupt, summoning Buzzwole in the process. But Necrozma's radiation didn't just affect the plant life. I believe that Qtfly had to adapt itself into what we now know as Buzzwole in order to survive in this extremely hostile dimension that was showered in Necrozma's light. Look, I know it sounds strange, but hear me out. Let's start with Buzzwole's location in Pokemon Sun. There you can find it within Melemele Meadow, a place known for its abundant population of Qtfly. Sure, this could be a coincidence, but the more you look, the more it lines up. Biologically, Buzzwole is clearly based on a mosquito. Mosquitoes take up nutrients by feeding on blood. But here's the thing, only female mosquitoes do this. Male mosquitoes actually feed on nectar, just like Qtfly. And you know what animal Qtfly is based on? Well, that's actually the bee fly, which shares an order with the mosquito, specifically the Diptera order, otherwise known as true flies. My theory is that Qtfly had to take on the traits of its distant cousin, the female mosquito, while also retaining the male gender's physical durability. I mean, think about the ecosystem. In the Ultra Jungle, plant life has exploded into towering giants, making nectar sources scarce or unreachable. So Qtfly species would have needed a new way to survive. Feeding on nectar wasn't enough anymore. Absorbing life energy directly from other creatures became a brutal necessity. Here's another small similarity between the two. Both Qtfly and Buzzwole are drawn to energy, just in different forms. Qtfly seeks out the emotional aura of living things, while Buzzwole is attracted to displays of raw physical strength. And that's also why he jumps from the active volcano to greet you. He sensed your aura from all the way back there, almost as if it were a strengthened version of the already sensitive aura detection capabilities that Qtfly has. Pheromosa has the codename of UB Beauty and is a bug/fighting type, just like Buzzwole. Unlike Buzzwole though, Pheromosa looks like a toothpick in a skirt. Pheromosa's home dimension is known as the Ultra Desert, which is a landscape that's filled with turquoise crystals and flowing sand. Several rocky structures are scattered around, and within the area that the player can access, there's a section where both Machamp Shove as well as Mudsdale Golop needs to be used. Which begs the question of how the right Pokemon even get here in the first place, cause we're at least 1,000 light years away from Alola, and I don't remember paying for their express service. Actually, I don't think I'm paying for their service at all. Nah, whatever. When Necrozma's light radiation hit Pheromosa's home world, it did the complete opposite to what it did to Buzzwole's world. Instead of mutating plant life to create a lush jungle, it created a harsh, arid environment that had Pokemon become thinner and faster instead of larger and bulkier. Now, who do I think Pheromosa used to be before it was twisted by Necrozma's light? I think it's Serena, the fruit Pokemon. Think about it. Both Pheromosa and Serena share long, powerful legs with an emphasis on devastating kicking moves. Their Pokédex entries also state that the two of them are shown to be remarkably beautiful, with Pheromosa's Dex entry even stating that it refuses to touch anything that it considers as unclean. Their learned moves are also pretty similar, with both of their final moves that they learn through leveling up being High Jump Kick. They also both learn dancing moves, with Serena learning Teeter Dance at level 34 and Pheromosa learning Quiver Dance at level 65. There are even more similarities between the two when you look at their stat totals. Both of their HP and attack stats are almost identical. Each of their defense and special defense stats are also the same, with Serena having 98 points in both and Pheromosa having 37. The rise in speed, as well as Pheromosa's decision to diversify into also having a high special attack stat, makes a lot of sense actually. In the Ultra Desert, defense means little when you're surrounded by razor-sharp crystals and blistering winds. Instead of evolving its bulk like Buzzwole, Pheromosa's ancestors adapted by sacrificing defense to become hyper-fast, agile predators, a better fit for hunting and surviving in a barren crystal desert. The environment also explains its typing. The once lush jungle Serena thrived in dried up under Necrozma's radiation, stripping away its grass typing. Its plant-like features fell away, leaving only the traits needed to outrun and outfight anything else trying to live there. Before we continue, I wanted to give a quick shout out to the awesome team over at Pokedoku who reached out to me and asked if I wanted to collaborate with them, to which I obviously said yes, because they gave me the chance to make my very own Pokedoku, which I actually based on this very video. If you're not familiar with Pokedoku, it's a puzzle game where you match Pokemon to two intersecting criteria on a 3x3 grid. So if you're as interested in Ultra Beasts as I am, then go check them out. I've got them linked in the description. I promise you guys, you won't regret it. It's a lot of fun. And hey, if you've enjoyed the video so far, then also consider subscribing to the channel. I have got a lot more planned that I would love your support for. Now then, where were we? Celesteela, the Ultra Beast known as the launch Pokemon, is a massive rocket-like creature that towers over its surroundings, with, well, the power to blast off into the sky using high-pressure propulsions from both its arms and torso. Its home dimension is known as the Ultra Crater, which is a large, expansive world with several, well, craters that are filled with a green substance. The land has what looks to be metal pipes growing as roots throughout the rocks, which are also likely to be Celesteelas. A few red monoliths are sticking out of the ground, as well as several geysers, which are consistently shooting out steam. The world is frequented by earthquakes due to Celesteela launching themselves out of the ground and into the sky. The atmosphere is tinted a sickly yellow hue due to the geothermal activity from the geysers, as well as the Celesteela. This time I want to argue for something slightly different than a mutation, and this idea actually originates from one of the Ruin Maniac Files videos on the connection between Celesteela and Claydol. In Pokemon Moon, Celesteela appears in the Haina Desert, the same desert where Baltoy, Claydol's pre-evolution, can be found as an SOS encounter. The Haina Desert is also found right beside Blush Mountain, the volcano where Alola's geothermal power plant resides on, and the Ultra Crater's whole thing is geothermal vents and geysers, so I think you know what I'm getting at, right? Anyway, here's one of Claydol's Pokédex entries that I would like for you to have a look at. It states that this Pokemon came to life due to being exposed to a mysterious ray of light. What's if this light was that of Necrozma's radiation seeping through the Ultra wormholes? And what's if this exact thing happened in another world? A world which received much more of Necrozma's powers? That's what I think created the Celesteela. Not a mutation, but a different input in its creation process. This is also further backed up by their similar body structures. We know that Necrozma's light energy causes Pokemon to grow in size, and with more of Necrozma's light comes more growth. So while these two Pokemon might have the same outline, having two floating arms, a pointy head, and a large round torso, each of these features is ever so more pronounced in Celesteela. What about the world itself? The sky is streaked with strange layered bands, which is actually something that can happen here on Earth too. Specifically in volcanic or desert regions. They're caused by geothermal vents pumping a large amount of heat and gas into the lower atmosphere, which then creates layers of different temperatures and pressures. We also know that Celesteela has a habit of rooting themselves into the ground and draining a location's energy. So what's if the Celesteela's creation all those thousands of years ago slowly drained the world of its life, turning the once lush land into the now barren landscape filled with what I presume to be sulfuric craters. Hau'oli City is also known as the city that's overflowing with gentle joy. My favorite place here has got to be its famous Malasada shop. I guess it would be more accurate to say that it was my favorite, before the city was destroyed at least. The Ultra Ruins is situated on what seems to be a toppled skyscraper. As you travel through this dimension, you can see various pieces of debris scattered around you. There's the big gate from the beachfront's entrance, the red fences that were painted by Elima, the chipped wall where you were first introduced to the Pokefinder, the City Hall's welcome sign, and even the Malasada shop, but now they all lie in ruin. This place is none other than Hau'oli City, or to be more accurate, its post-apocalyptic counterpart, the home of the Ultra Beast known as Guzzlord. Guzzlord is known as the Junkivore Pokemon, and it's definitely the Ultra Beast with the most evidence behind it being a different Pokemon, that being Zygarde. I do want to say that I've done a video on their connection before, but I still decided to include it here since not only I, but also the comment section on that video have added quite a bit more to their connection. Plus, I need to connect it all to Necrozma's light, which is the whole point of this video, isn't it? Right after you exit the Ultra wormhole, you can find a man standing near the entrance in what seems to be a protective Guzzlord-themed hazmat suit, which is super reassuring since we're walking around in nothing but a shirt, but I'm sure we'll be fine. The suited man will also provide us with tidbits of information on some of the debris found here, such as the working filtration machine that cleans their drinking water, and the electronic beachfront display, which appears to be the only thing left of the color blue in this world. But the most interesting thing is the poster that advertises a new power plant. The truth behind the power plant actually gets even more confusing when we look at another one of the man's statements. He says that the people who built the power plant in the first place don't want to talk about it anymore, as if something happened to it, something bad. This all leads to only one possible explanation. The power plant exploded, polluting Alola and possibly the rest of the world. In my original video, I argued that Zygarde was so overwhelmed by this large quantity of pollution that it needed to evolve rapidly in order to cleanse it all. This rapid evolution then caused its cells to become cancers, splitting off from the original Zygarde, each becoming a Guzzlord whose goal was still to cleanse the world, but now instead of healing it, it consumed it. That's still true, of course, but nowadays I think there's more to this whole story. Remember how I said that Z-Power is just a different version of Infinity Energy? Well, this Infinity Energy was also once used to power the ultimate weapon, so what's to say that the Z-Power couldn't be harnessed in the same way? I think that this version of Alola received just the right amount of Necrozma's power that allowed it to advance their technology faster than ours ever could have. But this very fact was also their downfall. In the process of trying to harness this Z-Power, their power plant exploded, irradiating the area with a large amount of Necrozma's light. Zygarde's mutation was thus not only caused by a faster rate of natural evolution, but also by the extreme amounts of Z-Power it was exposed to during this process. Now that that's out of the way, let's go over the other facts that connect the two. Let's start with Zygarde's and Guzzlord's physical similarities. Their torsos both have 2 eyes and a jagged mouth, with Guzzlord's mouth being a pried open version of it. Their eyes are of similar shape as well, with Zygarde's being white and Guzzlord's being blue. Thirdly, the back arms of Zygarde actually open up in a similar fashion to that of Guzzlord's own arms. Their 2 shiny variants are also both the exact same color. Finally, their HP stats are both very high, with Guzzlord beating out 100% Zygarde by 7 whole points. There's also the area Zygarde is found in the Ultra games, Resolution Cave. This is the same location that Guzzlord is found in both Pokemon Sun as well as Moon. For the last piece of evidence, we can actually turn to Guzzlord's own creator, James Turner. He actually mentioned that the two of them look similar intentionally, as he designed Guzzlord while using Zygarde as inspiration. Xurkitree is known as the glowing Pokemon, which fits, especially since it lights up like a Christmas tree. Its homeworld is called the Ultra Plant, a storm-ridden dimension that suffers from frequent lightning strikes. Large monoliths are visibly protruding from the surface of the planet, and in the distance, you can see various sizes of Xurkitree. They range from small ones running around the monolith itself to giant ones, which we can see towering off in the distance. Now, I will admit, Xurkitree was tricky, but I'm still pretty confident about my answer. I think its ancestor is Rotom, and here is why. As you know, Rotom can inhabit a variety of appliances, but they can also travel large distances within electrical wiring. What I believe happened here is that the Rotom who possessed these electrical cables got hit by so much of Necrozma's light that they not only fused together with the wires themselves, but also grew in size, and before you know it, they covered the entire surface of the world. But it's not all just speculation. Both of their base stat totals are quite similar. Their HP and attack stats are almost identical, with the same happening to their defensive stats. Their highest stat is also their special attack, with Xurkitree of course beating Rotom in every metric, but that's to be expected with an Ultra Beast that was irradiated by Infinity Energy. Then you have their typing. Xurkitree is a pure electric type Pokemon, while Rotom is an electric/ghost type. But you know which of the two Rotom actually retains when it inhabits electronics? It's the electric type. While it would usually gain another type based on the appliance itself, in this case, the wiring would just amplify its electricity instead. Now, location-wise, Xurkitree can appear in both the Lush Jungle and Memorial Hills, but what I would like you to look at is the Memorial Hill location specifically. Yes, you can't find Rotom there, but it's also a graveyard, a location ghost types such as Rotom would feel most at home in. Something I want to quickly add on too is that you can actually encounter Phantom, Trevenant's pre-evolution, in here as well. Trevenant's a tree Pokemon that's known to use its roots as a nervous system. And, well, Xurkitree's body structure strangely resembles that of a neuron. Plus, it also uses its cables as roots. But, well, that's just something to think about, I guess. Next up, Nihilego, also known as the Parasite Pokemon. It lives in a dark dimension that's filled with caves that include several colorful rocks, which are shaped like various flora that shine like diamonds. The area we get access to allows us to travel through a small pathway, where Nihilego can be actively seen traveling throughout the area. And who did Nihilego mutate from? Well, I think it's the Overturning Pokemon, or the more commonly known name, Malamar. Malamar is known to have the strongest hypnotic powers of any Pokemon, using it to force others into doing exactly what it wants them to do. Nihilego, on the other hand, attaches itself to a host's head, not manipulating the host directly, but instead boosting their innate abilities to an extreme extent through the use of neurotoxins. Both share a mind alteration theme, it's just that Nihilego amplifies their powers instead of directly controlling it, and I think that the mutation twisted Malamar's hypnotic powers into that of a chemical neurotoxin. But why? Well, I think that Necrozma's radiation actually affected Malamar's strategic mind the most. It was hit by so much of Necrozma's power that it not only lost most of its intelligence, it was so damaged that its mind was reverted to an almost childlike state. And that's also why we sometimes see it act like a young girl. The only thing remaining is the need to control others. We can also compare their physical features. Nihilego and Malamar are both modeled after sea creatures, one being a jellyfish, while the other is a squid. But is that really the case? Squids actually turn this white coloration that Nihilego has when they pass away, and that's due to their special pigmentation cells called chromatophores, which allows them to change their color. Since Necrozma's light damaged Malamar's brain, it became incapable to unconsciously manage these cells anymore, which caused their bodies to turn a pale white color. Oh, and also their shiny forms use the exact same color scheme of white and yellow, which is interesting. There's also the fact that Nihilego are actually capable of creating illusions, such as making itself and its allies vanish, as well as being able to see other people's memories. Both of them being leftover psychic abilities from Malamar explains why a rock and poison type would even have them in the first place. Kartana is a rather interesting Ultra Beast, and it's also referred to as the Drawn Sword Pokemon, which makes sense since its body is described to be able to cut down a steel tower with one stroke of its blade. Kartana's homeworld is that of a gigantic green valley that's fittingly dubbed the Ultra Forest. The leaves on the floor resemble origami paper, and the ground appears to be modeled after a Japanese rock garden. At the end of the winding path, you can encounter Kartana, who slashes a large rock in half before challenging you to a battle. The Ultra Forest is inhabited by other humans, which is actually what led me to believe that Kartana was once Honage and its evolutionary line. My theory here is that Necrozma's radiation didn't just mutate the Honage line into Kartana, it actually inverted the common relationship between sword and wielder. Honage isn't actually the sword itself, it's the blue eye on the handguard, which is also a parasitic lifeform that uses the blue cloth to drain the lives of other people. With the Z-power that Necrozma expelled also being the equivalent of life energy, I think that Honage's evolutionary line gained a more powerful version of their siphoning ability that then allowed them to keep their user just alive enough for them to function, but never enough to fight back. It now wields people. Here's the evidence for it. The first person that greets you as you walk into the Ultra Forest is an older man who is actually capable of speaking the same language as we do. He lets us know that we must either capture Kartana or cut it down in a duel. But what he's actually saying is that we must either show Kartana that we can overpower it, or we must take it with us. A prominent characteristic found in parasitic organisms that allows them to spread and infect others. What I found to be the most interesting, however, is that no one else here actually speaks our language other than him. Everyone else here uses vocabulary that's actually a direct reference to Kendo, which translates to way of the sword. Every old man here owns a Kartana, with them immediately challenging you to a duel after they lock eyes with you, which makes complete sense actually, especially when you take a look at Aegislash's Pokédex entry, which lets us know that it's capable of controlling and manipulating humans to do their bidding. But here is where it gets tricky. Kartana is modeled after a katana. However, Honage is actually modeled after a broadsword, but that actually leads me back to Honage's true form, with it just being the eye on the hilt, not the sword itself. So it inhabiting other swords, or even origami material to become a sword, makes sense, especially when you consider the fact that it's spread to other regions, and there broadswords aren't as widely spread around as they are in European regions, for example. Now what about the world itself? The environment in the Ultra Forest resembles that of a traditional Japanese rock garden. These gardens are built in order to achieve a sense of spiritual peace and reflection, a place where you can retreat into your mind and let your thoughts wander. A pretty easy target for katanas who want to control your mind, don't you think? Poipole is actually the only Ultra Beast known to be able to evolve into another, that being Naganadel. Its home world is none other than the Ultra Megalopolis, which, as stated in the beginning of the video, is the place where Necrozma lost its light. This one is rather tricky, especially since we don't actually know all too much about the Ultra Megalopolis' environment. But what we can see is, well, nothing. In that I mean there isn't any light to see things with. So while on one hand we could argue that Ultra Necrozma's light actually affected this world as well, I would like to disagree here. Right after it broke, Necrozma stole all of the light in the Ultra Megalopolis, which would, ironically enough, hinder its light radiation from affecting the people and Pokemon living here. With that in mind, I'd like you to take a look at Nidoran, the Poison Pin Pokemon, and then compare it to Poipole, the Poison Pin Pokemon. Both are base poison types, both have 2 evolution stages, both secrete toxic chemicals from the top of their head, and finally, both are common early found Pokemon, with Poipole's dex entry even stating it being a common choice for a starter in the Ultra Megalopolis. There are 2 Ultra Beasts that I haven't talked about so far, namely Stakataka and Blacephalon. Both of these Ultra Beasts don't actually have a world of their own, so I sadly can't go and show you what it might look like, but we can speculate. Blacephalon could have originated from a world where everything, even the ground, is unstable and constantly blows up. And for Stakataka, I think it could have actually originated from a world entirely made out of Stakataka, like a giant hive mind. I would like to leave it up to you to decide which Pokemon they could have come from. I've got my own ideas and speculations, sure, but I think it would be fun to discuss that together in the comment section with you all.